I never imagined that I would be making a Galahad video when I started making videos. My initial try at really climbing the ladder during my time at the Japanese server was with Blau. And I ran into so many Galahad decks, and I would lose to them so often to just a cheesy 3 crit play, and they just happen to play crits, and it's making me depressed thinking about it. However, I decided to make the deck because I just happened to pull for Galahad. And because I was never able to do a competitive build with Royal so far, I thought the next best thing was at least this free-to-play deck I thought I would share with you guys. The goal of the deck is to use the Galahad ride chain to plus in a way of not having to use the units in our hand, but rather filter our deck of units that aren't going to do anything besides get us to our ride chain. We also want to be using our counterblast efficiently, whether that's with Galahad's ability or with Blaster Blade. Galahad is part of a ride chain. The ride chain is similar to Tsukiyomi's. The grade 0 at the beginning of your ride phase will go and search for the grade 1. The grade 1 will go search for the grade 2 at the beginning of your next ride phase. If that is successful, you do soul charge 1. And then the grade 2 Galahad will then go search for the grade 3 Galahad, soul charging 2 additional, which will get you to 6 in soul, which will then enable Galahad's ability to be able to counterblast 2, get plus 3k, and a crit. This is stackable, so if you are really in the need to, you can counterblast 4 and give him plus 6k and 2 crit. I will get to why I don't think that is an efficient use of your counterblast later, but I just thought I'd let you know that it is there if you do need it. This is a free-to-play deck, so everything in here is only double rares and below. In the grade 1 slot, besides the PGs and the Galahad, I play 4 Marin. It's kind of nice that it can take care of interceptors sometimes by itself. I am considering cutting some of the Marins for more copies of Borgul. He has the ability that during your turn he gets plus 3k if you have 6 cards in your soul, which Galahad will get you to. Yes, that does mean before Galahad goes off, or if Galahad doesn't go off, he has a 6k vanilla. But if Galahad doesn't go off, you're already gonna lose, so you might as well capitalize on him going off. Since we're not playing Gantz a lot, Blaster Blade becomes a little less good in this deck. He still is a very important piece to the deck. Earlier I said that using Galahad's Counterblast 2 ability multiple times is a bad idea, and one of the big reasons is because then it turns off Blaster Blade. Blaster Blade being able to pop big interceptors, such as the 12Ks like Lava Arm, is going to be able to guarantee hits with Galahad versus having you swing Galahad at an interceptor. I play 3 of the Gantz lots just for the defensive powers of having a 10k interceptor. And then rounding out the grade 2 slot, I play 2 copies of the Gigantech Dozer. He has the same ability as Borgul, that if you have 6 cards in your soul, he gets plus 3k. This makes him a 12k attacker. So him boosted by Marin is a 20k attacker, or him boosted by Borgul is a 21k attacker, helping you get those magic numbers. I do see reasons to play less and more of him. I just think depending on which way you go with that, you're going to have to play more Borgul, because that means you already are trying to capitalize on the idea that you're always going to have 6 cards in your soul. The only reason I'm sticking at 2 right now is because defensively, he is then just a 9k on your opponent's turn. And there are some turns where having Gancelot is more important to me. Going back to our grade 3s, our backup Vanguard is going to be Demon Slayer Lohengrin. He is only here as a backup if the ride chain doesn't go off, so that when you do eventually get to Galahad, you will have enough soul to have him go off. You will never want to use his Mega Blast because it does turn off a big piece of your deck. I really like the 3 Palamedes in this deck. If he is on rear guard, he's going to get the plus 3k. This is important because it does get past those 12k interceptors that we were talking about earlier. It can also help hit for a first swing, because what we're going to talk about later is that you're most of the time going to want Galahad to swing second. So Palamedes is a great first attacker at damage. I play the 3 Caradoc. I like him because he's free in the way that you don't have to use Counterblast. It does hinder us because there are going to be some times where he is just a 9k, and getting past some of those interceptors by himself is going to be very hard. Once we start talking about upgrades, I would start cutting him before anything else in the deck. Some lines of play that you're going to want to think about when piloting this deck is you don't want to rush, except against OTT, and I'll talk about that in a second. Getting them to 2 damage before you want to use Galahad is important, but you don't want to go beyond that. So if you go first, just swinging in with your 2 grade 2s is going to be enough. And if you go second, dealing both damage with just your Vanguards is going to be enough. We do this because when they are at 2 damage, they won't be able to use their PG against Galahad. And then when they're at 4 damage after the swing with Galahad, we will be able to pressure them with another Galahad swing, eating one of their PGs, and then be able to pressure them with our rear guards. Placing a grade 1 behind Galahad is not a bad idea, especially if heals come up. This way Galahad can attack last with a 21 or 22k swing, depending on what's boosting him, and 2 crits. You don't want to swing with him first because the 2 damage is going to stack up the defensive triggers that your opponent's going to be able to get, and then your rear guard is not going to be able to swing in. With other budget options in mind, I want to start off by talking about Dream Painter. A lot of decks I see are trying to run Dream Painter as a backup in case the Galahad ride chain doesn't go off at some point. The neg 1 in hand hurts this deck a lot because there's no way for this deck to plus, so it does more harm than it does good. I would rather just run Lohengrin as a soul fixer just because it doesn't eat up our hand. I can see a good argument being made about running Lake Maiden as a replacement for Marin, for example. The 7k body still makes us a sufficient booster, and the filtering she does for the deck doesn't hurt us at all. I just currently prefer Marin, but if you think the filtering is more important, then definitely run Lake Maiden. Moving on to upgrades for the deck. If you can get Gancelot into your deck, please do. He is the poster boy for Royal Paladins and their only way of really plussing with the deck. Well, it's more fixing. It gives you more access to heal triggers, and it gives you access to a retiring effect in the way of getting Blaster Blade. Soul Saver Dragon is really cool to splash into the deck as a 1 or 2 of. There's cool synergy in the way that you can use her effect to Soul Blast 4 and give 3 of your rear guards plus 5k after Galahad's act ability. So this can make for a win more final turn in the way that Galahad's swinging for 2 crits and everything on your rear guard is going to be big. She does not soul charge herself, so don't rely on her in that sense. So that's what I mean by just kind of splashing her in there. I wouldn't run 4 of her if you have her. Once you do start adding more Soul Saver, don't add Barkle. The Counterblast one hurts the deck too much. Moving forward, when I talk about the meta, I'll just kind of talk about like the 3 biggest decks that I think are currently going around. Obviously, in first place, we have Risers to think about. They have a similar playstyle to us with a big swinging Vanguard. The difference is they can hit way harder than us with bigger numbers. What we have over them is we have more resources. They have to lose a big portion of their board to get Perfect Boy to pass his threshold. This means that we can be a little more reserved with our grade 2s in our hand so that we can be very defensive once we know that Perfect Riser is about to come out. Tsukiyomi is probably our worst matchup. They plus so much that they are almost always going to have a Perfect Guard in their hand once Tsukiyomi does get out. This is what I mean by this is probably the only deck you're going to want to rush at times. Hitting them with Galahad's 2 crits before the Tsukiyomi can start popping off is going to be the only way that we're going to be able to win in the early game. Going up against Kaguro is going to have similar issues that we had with Tsukiyomi. If you're playing against Kagero good stuff, they have Conroe, and Conroe can guarantee them a PG. So that means one Galahad swing is just not going to hit. And then going up against Eclipse, they can deal with our board very easily. This is when units like Marin and Borgel are nice because we don't really need them as boosters. So we can hold on to them in hand. So once our front row is completely gone, so we can put them in the front row to deal with their interceptors. My final thoughts for the deck is, like I said, I really hated Galahad for the longest time. I'm not really a Royal Paladin guy, but I guess after getting like slammed in the face by Galahad like so many times, I guess I see the light. The Spike Brothers event just started, and I've started seeing myself auto fighting with the Galahad deck just because I think the crit pressure is just very powerful. If I was to playtest this deck with my Ganslots and Soul Saver in it, I think I would have enjoyed it even more to have the more consistency that those units give. I still feel like this deck has a lot of growing because, like I said, like Marin still feels really awkward, and if the ride chain doesn't go off, you're kind of screwed, versus units like Eclipse that can still go off without the ride chain being successful. You know what I mean? I really hope that this deck can be enjoyed by other people. I hope that not as many people are as salty about the deck as I am, so that they can look at it with fresh eyes. I'm not exactly sure which deck I'm going to be working on next. I might even be working on my Spike Brothers backup guide, but that might be closer to when the event ends. I'm going to be working in the meantime on a backup for the Spike Brothers event, like I did with the Grand Blue one. It's going to be a little more awkward because one of the triple rares is the boss monster for the deck, so that might be a little harder to replace. So I guess we'll see. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and enjoy. Ooh, look, the sun's coming out. Look. Like I said, I was seeing the light, and it's kind of showing me.